I'm Johnny Smith.
I'm Richard Porter.
And this is Smith & Sniff, a podcast in which two friends talk about cars and many other things. Car insurance, stupid, just stupid.
What, the concept of car insurance or the price of car insurance?
Well, that quote came from a TV advert in, I think, the really early 90s, and I've never seen it since. I've tried to find it. I think it was Direct Line, but it was like quite a shouty, footy hooligan-y looking guy stood next to a Fiesta XR2i, and he was staring down the barrel of the camera really aggressively, just going, car insurance, stupid, just stupid. And we used to say,
I don't remember this.
We used to say it. We used to say it to one another on the way to school because he just said it in such an unnecessarily aggressive way. We were going, "What do you mean it's stupid? What, as in it's too expensive?" But that's what it was ultimately. It was because then it went to a couple of other testimonials, and then it came, it came back to him at the end with a slight smile, but I'm not going to say a very big smile, going, "I saved a packet."
God, did you then, on the way to school, apply the same thing to other stuff, like bag of crisps, stupid,
just stupid? Do you know what I thought was? It's the sort of thing I thought if you ever got into a bullying, because if ever I knew I was going to be in danger of getting bullied at school, I would try and manipulate the conversation to make them giggle or laugh to the point where they're like, I just can't be bothered to punch you in the face because you just made me laugh now. I'll find someone else who's easier. And so I always thought, if I ever get into a situation like that again, maybe as I'm about to get like done in a good shoeing, I'll go, listen, I reckon you're overpaying for your car insurance. If you give me 5 minutes, I reckon I can save you a couple of £100, yeah? And they might go, oh, well, as it turns out, I am paying too much. I'm pretty annoyed about it. So go on then, see what you can do. You've got 5 minutes. And if you don't, I'll cut you.
Yes. I feel like maybe that's where the Direct Line people sort of decided against. Yeah, we like the creative direction on this. Apart from the bit where he goes, get car insurance or I'll cut you.
Yeah, I think they probably weren't too keen on that particular part of the process.
Speaking of football hooliganism, you'd have been very cross with me last night because I watched the football in a pub.
Oh, gosh.
Which, I know, when we were in Le Mans and the football was on the screen, you sort of actively faced the wrong way so you didn't have to look at it because of your disdain for football, stupid, as you might have said.
I like unpaid football. I think it's a good thing.
But they're not. They're international games. They're not being paid.
No, but you said this when we were drinking that really nice beer, but it's not true.
Wasn't it a nice beer? That Pilsner.
That lovely German Pilsner.
Crisp beer that was.
It was a good Pilsner. But they are getting paid. They're getting paid in product placement, and they'll get paid in certain brands that they're affiliated with. They're not doing that out of the charities of their own hearts.
Well, they're representing their country on the international stage. I mean, I think it's probably very prestigious if you're a footballer.
I'm representing my country on my own stage. I think it's really prestigious, didn't I?
But it's Friday we're recording this, and last night was England versus Denmark.
Oh, was it?
In the Euros, yeah. And so I was in London, working, and the office I was in, because that match started at 5 o'clock, and just before 5, everybody cleared out to go and watch the football. So, I went with.
Why would they start the match at 5 when they know that most British people are still trying to work?
Well, I think they did it deliberately, because they know that most British people would like to skive off a bit early.
But we're still trying to get over, a pandemic and an economic circling the drain scenario. So
if this was the England versus Denmark in a banger race, I don't think you'd be complaining about the 5 o'clock start time. I think this is your disdain for
the ethics of banger racing are questionable. And I won't talk anymore about it. My son likes football, and lots of people refer to it as the beautiful game, which I couldn't think of a worse title for it. But I think it's the pretend falling over, game. Shouty, and just being aggressive to one another if you win or lose game.
Well, anyway, I don't know very much about football, but I can happily watch a game, particularly in international, where you've got some, as Americans would say, skin in the game, because obviously I was going to root for England. It was a quite dull match, but that's by the by. The reason I bring it up is because we went to a pub in near Tottenham Court Road in central London.
Tottenham?
Which is pretty busy, but not sort of absolutely rammed to the windows. So you could find a space to stand and not have your pints spilt. But I was with two blokes from this thing that I'm working on who I hadn't realised the depth of their football enthusiasm and their body language and their reactions. And I suddenly realised I don't know how to watch football in a crowded space. My body language is all wrong, and I was just terrified of giving myself away as someone who doesn't really know what they're watching. So I was trying to, and I started doing, I felt like I was doing a bit of ham acting, like my face. I was doing too much, oh, and goo, and it just didn't ring true. And I thought, and I was watching particularly one of these lads, he's constantly like waving his hands around, and he was sort of shouting his analysis to the other bloke, going, he needs to move him to the left, what's he doing? And I just thought, I don't think I care about anything in my life with that level of passionate intensity. And I was sort of quite jealous in a way. I just thought, I watch F1, although I haven't watched it for ages because it's been a bit dull. But if I watch it, you sort of get on the edge of your seat occasionally, but it's not just kind of 90 minutes of kind of jittering with nervous energy. And I was like, I don't really have anything like that.
Well,
it's a shame.
You see, I remember soccer in the 1960s, and I used to wear an exceedingly thick woolen sweater, and I believe the ball was stitched from a leather from a camel, exceedingly robust thing, but heavy when the weather was wet, and we ran around for many, many hours and hours, and I think at one point I was wearing my brogues because I forgot my correct shoes. But, it was wondrous. It was so simple and wondrous. There was no fighting. I don't even think anybody had the guts to shout. I think we just pointed and smiled. And it was
clapped politely every so often if some chap got the ball or received a ball to the face and was horrifically injured, but he just carried on, dusted himself off he went.
We carried on. I remember prepping the pitch myself using my father's Wolseley because they Because the lawnsman had, I think, fallen unwell after many hours of whiskey. And so I couldn't find the keys to the shed for the mowers. So I found an alternative method using a multitude of ropes and blades behind my father's Wolseley. And you see, it worked perfectly. And I lost a finger, but it was okay. I still made the match. And the ladies came to watch, and they were giggling, and they had a picnic, and of course it was torrential rain, and they stayed out there. And I was honestly, Richard, I wish you'd been there to experience it. It was just so wholesome and wonderful. And we said hip hip hooray to the winning team, and then we all went. I think we all went to the tavern. Yes, we all went to the tavern.
Well, actually, we'd already had several pints of ale in handled tankards because Freddie popped to the Cricketers' Arms across the way from the pitch and brought them out, and we were drinking while we were playing. Innocent times.
Of course.
The 60s.
It's so cold. We had a toddy of whiskey at half time.
Yes. Whiskey.
At no point at any time did anybody say, you must hydrate and drink water. We didn't. We didn't do this. It was simply not the thing to do. Oh, and I remember, of course, Bundy. Bundy came along, and Bundy had a Triumph TR2, and he'd left the roof down. And, of course, it was bloody raining for hours and hours, so the bloody car was full of water like a bath. So we pushed it down the street and tipped it on its end, and all of the water came out, and he drove that home. I think he perished. But we had such... But you see, football was so different in the 1960s.
Professional association players weren't paid millions of pounds like they are now. Bobby Charlton used to get 1 shilling a week, and his only professional endorsement was from a pipe tobacco company.
That's right.
Which, of course, he used anyway, so he was delighted to have their patronage.
The young people never used to point and shout and say F and C and say, who are you, who are you, who are you, who are you? They used to, the young people, I remember, they used to sing things like, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Ah, yes. Instead of,
you're
you're going home in a fucking ambulance,
oh, no,
we would shout to the oppositions, would anybody like a lift after the game? And we'd take 1 or 2 of them home. I would use my Spitfire and drive them perhaps to Portsmouth or Aberdeen.
That's right. Teddy's borrowed his father's coach. We can fit in excess of 613 people inside it. Would you like to come with us? Yes.
Of course, it rolled over in the Peak District and we all perished. But we were able to laugh about it.
2 of us survived, terribly hypothermic, but we laugh now. Yes. Different times.
Where were we?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, I was drinking a pint in a pub in central London and trying to make the right noises during a football game. Which, but I thought of you, and I just thought Johnny would be so disgusted with this. He'd be just like, why don't you just go outside and not watch the game?
I'd go for a walk or go and do some vacuuming at home.
Well, I'd already done a walk because I did a big walk. I was staying the other night in the Archway area of North London, near where I used to live. And
nice.
I needed to get to our office in the Tottenham Court Road area of central London. And it was a beautiful morning when I got up, and I had plenty of time. So I thought I would walk, and I walked the whole way down. So it's about 3 miles, so it's not massive.
Yeah, is that like a 45-minute walk, something like that?
Yes, something like that, yeah.
I've done this.
But it was lovely. It was lovely. I've done it in reverse, but only when drunk at night. And but this was just because it was a lovely morning, and I thought, why not? I'm not in a rush, I'll stroll. Now, the only problem is I was wearing a rucksack, and I've recently become a double strap enthusiast.
Oh, completely.
As you might have noticed at Le Mans. Yeah, I was never a double strapper. And if I had a rucksack on, I'd just single over one shoulder, and my wife would always go, just do both. I was like, I don't like it. You look like a Swedish tourist or something.
No, but you look like you don't want your shoulders to ache.
Well, exactly. So I had that quite nice rucksack that I commandeered off my wife. It was mine originally. She took it off me. I took it back for Le Mans because we had to carry around some kit and stuff. Good double strap rucksack, nice padded strap. So I had that, double strap it, off I go, down through Tufnell Park and Kentish Town and all of that. Got to where I was going and suddenly became aware that I had an incredibly sweaty back.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And I was wearing a light coloured T-shirt. And essentially I had to go into the loo at the place that I was working at and change my shirt because the back of it was absolutely soaking. It's the bit of rucksacking I hadn't thought through.
I can feel your pain.
That was my walk yesterday.
I had quite severe BO the other week. I had to tell some people about it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I bought this really nice ethical deodorant, but it's reactive with my skin.
They never work.
No, I've got one ethical deodorant that I really like that I've been using now for probably 10 years. But I saw this other one and thought, oh, this seems good. And all of the packaging's compostable.
What is unethical about regular deodorant?
Well, they test it on poor people. I think that's what they do. Yeah. And I think that's unethical.
I'm going to say I feel like the deodorant that I use is not tested on animals because it has the little symbol on the pack. But
when I say ethical, what I mean is it's all natural ingredients and it's aluminium free. And most of the time, the packaging's biodegradable. But
it's the aluminium as well, isn't it?
It's the aluminum.
In there.
Yeah,
aluminum.
Yeah. Do you know what I thought the other day? This is not related to football or BO. I thought.
Okay, good.
I don't think. I have absolutely no idea how much AdBlue costs. I've never, ever bought any, and I've never put any in a car, ever.
No, me neither. Ever. Oh, no, wait, no, that's not true. No, I have, but I couldn't say. It's one of those things. If you told me that it costs 3p for 9 litres, I'd go, okay, like paracetamol. It's one of those things that a supermarket paracetamol is like, what, sort of 30p or something for a packet. You just go, that's really cheap for something that's really useful on occasion. But if you told me that AdBlue is in fact £500 for a litre, I'd go, ooh, well, yeah, fucking hell, AdBlue, eh? No wonder everyone's gone off diesels.
It's such a precious commodity that you're buying a car knowing full well that part of the advert says just been topped up with AdBlue. You go, well, that adds 600 quid to the value of the car. All
right, well, here we go. So Halfords selling AdBlue here. Ooh.
Hi, I'm Adam Blue.
It's quite... Yeah. That's just... I like... Radio 1 on the Friday night, isn't it? They play their dance anthems.
Yes.
I really want the DJ to be called Dan Santhems, but sadly... It hasn't happened.
Well, at least he's called Danny Howard, isn't he?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. You're listening to Dance Anthems with me, Dan Santhems.
Dan Santham.
5, that well-known surname. 5 litres of own brand AdBlue from Halfords would cost you £27.99.
Okay, that seems more than I was expecting. So that's about a gallon.
It's about more than just over 5 for a litre. And I don't know whether AdBlue is one of those things where you sort of get more for buying a posh brand like petrol. You know, sort of there's more.
Do you get qualities of AdBlue? I don't know.
This is what I'm wondering. I don't know.
Do you get
that chap we met at Le Mans? You know, when we were in the sort of bigger hospitality thing, and there was that chap there, Simon, who'd won a competition with Porsche because he owns a GT3. But he works in the oil and gas industry, and he knows a bit about petrol, and he was talking to me about the different additives and cleaners and stuff like that are in petrol or not in the cheaper petrols. It was a very interesting chat.
No, it was. Did you learn any intel, or you probably can't repeat it on a podcast?
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't. I mean, just only things that I've been told before, but it was really interesting to hear them confirmed by someone who's in that world. As in, like, sort of supermarket stuff won't necessarily have as much in it as one of your big brand names, and that's why it's cheaper. It's just got less stuff in it, but that stuff can be very good for your engine.
I forgot to say before we enjoyed the Le Mans weekend, that week, when you see those very short lay-bys on high speed dual carriageways, so they don't give you much notice to pull in. And there's also no feeder lane to come out again, so you've got to pretty much launch control it back out once you're in there. Do you know those ones? So they're last resort laybys, as I call them.
Yes,
there was
sort of like the length of 2 cars maximum.
Yeah, there was a Honda Civic Type R with its hazard warning lights on, and the doors were open. And as I was quite a long way away, but I could tell it was a Civic Type R because I could see the wing and everything. And as I got closer, I realised there was a guy bent over in the passenger door, and for a second I thought he had nothing on from the waist down, and then I realised he had flesh-coloured shorts on.
Oh yes,
and when you're doing 70 miles an hour, flesh-coloured shorts, they don't always register.
No,
and I just thought to myself, I just suddenly went,
walking down the street, they don't always register.
I just thought, as he had a terrible Type R accident and he's had to quickly bin it into that lay-by that once you're in, you can't get out of. But no, alas not. They were definitely fleshy-coloured shorts. I hope everything was all right with the car.
Ooh, well, if that was you... Yeah. Looking like a naked from the waist down, and let us know what the problem was with your Civic Type R. On that note...
Yeah.
We mentioned in the last main podcast that at Le Mans we were standing on a rooftop thing looking out over the start-finish straight, and 3 blokes from down below in the pit lane shouted "Spout!" at us.
Yes, they did.
And we were a bit like, if that was you, get in touch. Well, they have.
Oh.
One of the shouters was James Proudfoot, and he's emailed us. Well, he says, I'm just emailing to confirm who the pit lane hecklers were at Le Mans. It was, in fact, me, brackets James, and 2 other lads, brackets Andrew and Maggie.
Well,
unusual name for a chap. But
James, Andrew and Maggie, thank you so much. It was great.
Well, it's a heartwarming tale, because James had never met Andrew and Maggie before they went to Le Mans. James went down there with a mutual friend, Matt. Your podcast was what broke the ice between us at the start of the weekend, when I overheard the pair referring to the area as Leafy Le Mans and responding to an engine capacity related question with 2.2, yeah?
Oh, no way.
This provoked me to query whether I was just going insane or if my theory was correct. Otsot. Of course, they were avid listeners, and after driving my friend Matt insane all weekend with references he didn't understand, we thought it only right to heckle you across the pit lane while we were missing the podium ceremony.
We were missing it.
As an aside, James has attached pictures of something that happened. I'll stick these on the Patreon, but
there wasn't a podium incident involving some fleshy shorts, was there?
No.
Just want to check. Yeah, okay.
So he's attached some photos of what he describes as some absolute flutery that occurred in our campsite on Friday night. So someone in a Mercedes C63, like an old shape one, was doing burnouts on the grass until their car caught fire.
I heard there was a car fire, and it was a British.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So it was a Merc AMG. And what?
Yeah.
So the thing about...
I can actually see, a lot of people going down to Le Mans put their names on, typically at the rear window of their car, like it's a racing car.
Yeah.
I can see in one of these photos the driver's name. I'm not going to say it, but I asked James if this, because he sent me a photo of it doing a burnout and then a photo of it clearly
on fire.
A lot of fire underneath it. It looks like it could have almost been the grass, but as we know, it's very wet, so it's not. James said he thinks that the diff seal went or something, so oil started coming out with disastrous consequence. So I said, did he manage to salvage things? And James has sent me a follow-up photo of the burnt-out shell of a C63. So the answer is no. It all went horribly wrong. Took the fire brigade 40 minutes to arrive, apparently. They tried to tame the fire with 2-litre water bottles, and James threw half a pint of Grimbergen on it.
What I don't understand about the grass-based donut and burnout activity, which we all enjoy. In fact, I only did one about a fortnight ago in the Boxster.
Yes, you did, on video.
Yeah, was the fact that I think we all need to remember you do not need a great deal of power or torque to do skids on grass in a rear-wheel drive car. And there was a recent viral video off of Instagram of a guy in one of those lovely kind of baby-sick yellow E46 M3 convertibles.
Oh, yeah.
Going in hard in a field, a very dry cut field, basically just pinning the car on the limiter for minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes. And guess what happened? It caught itself completely on fire, and the car will never live again. What's going on with putting a car on the limiter on grass? You don't even need to have... On an AMG, you probably don't even need 25% throttle to do brilliant donuts and skids. It just baffles me.
God, no. I mean, that's the joy of grass, isn't it? That almost anything rear-wheel drive can be lit up.
Completely.
There's a friend of ours... I once went, a very long time ago, do you remember I had a smart roadster, like the one you now have, a Brabus one, as a long-termer from Evo.
Believe.
And I got invited on they did a London to Brighton, not Brighton, it was actual Brighton thing.
We still need to
smarts. Do that. And one of our friends, someone that we both know, was also in this in another smart roadster Brabus. And when we got to I can't remember where the finish line was, but there was grass parking. And people were all going in and, sort of parking neatly in lines. And this mate of ours went in. There's a marshal guiding him towards the next space. And just absolutely brilliantly, he just gave it a little tickle and just perfectly rotated it 180 degrees into this space.
Oh.
It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And then the marshal came over and gave him a bollocking and went, no, all the cars have to face that way for some reason, because they were doing a group shot. So he had to back it out and go in the normal way. But yeah, it was the perfectly judged tickle. if he'd been an oaf, he'd have given it full throttle and it would have gone round 360 degrees. But because he just went dick, just enough to get it round half a rotation.
So as car enthusiasts, do we need to send out some educational pamphlets talking about the grassy tickle, which is a grassy tickle is a really important technique in order to look good on grass. So a little bit of tomfoolery, but not a prick. No tyre wear, obviously, no engine wear, and certainly no fire brigades being called. So it's just it's a grassy tickle, and everyone goes, "Oh, that was neat."
The grassy tickle. But also diagrams of the grassy tickle showing throttle travel.
I also quite like the fact that the grassy tickle, as you're now calling it, it always impresses when you see like pre-war cars and cars which on the road don't normally do stuff like that. But you can dick about on grass because it doesn't wear out the suspension bushes and it doesn't dig in and roll the car over.
Are you talking about like an Edwardian burnout?
Well, maybe this should be a mandatory part. This should be a mandatory part of the London to Brighton. You have to stop off for tea and biscuits at the edge of a wet field, and
then do an Edwardian burnout. I reckon some of those, like it's a 1 or 2 cylinder engine, but also the capacity is 9 litres, and so it'll idle at sort of 4 RPM. So the burnout could be incredibly slow because it's so torquey. Just Jug. While a lady shows a bit of ankle.
Oh, that
to celebrate the gentleman's publication, Maximum Power. Mary here is going to show a tiny bit of shoulder.
I think she should stand in the middle of the field and everyone tries to pirouette around her with some tiller steer steam-powered nonsense.
Dialing in a bit of Oppo with tiller steering. I mean, I can see that. You can do it on canal boats and shit, can't you?
I would love that.
Not necessarily very successful, but...
Well, why don't we do sort of Dickensian D1?
Yeah. And the D stands for Dickens.
not drift. No, that would be great. The Dickensian D1, the Oppo trophy, and it's open to steam power, tiller steer, and other alternative steer. Obviously, none of the pedals are in the correct orientation.
Oh, no.
I would absolutely love that. It'd be fun if you did it in a field where no one was going to damage a car, really.
No.
And I know we're not just going to show a little bit of lady ankle. We're going to show a bit of man ankle as well.
Ooh,
aren't we?
Yeah.
In fact, the man will be dressed as a sort of early 20th century strongman, circus strongman.
So one of those, with the
looks like
leotard,
a knitted unitard. Do you know what I love about the word unitard? It's just so funny.
What's the difference between a unitard and a leotard?
It's only got one. It's only got one shoulder.
Oh, is that? Of course, yeah, uni. Okay.
Do you know who was a massive unitard enthusiast?
Who?
Freddie Mercury.
Was he?
Freddie Mercury. He loved a unitard. Yeah, he did.
Are you sure? I always associate him with a white vest.
No, he also loved a unitard. Yeah.
With egg down the front of it. Okay. Good. I see. I think a lot of the people at the Dickensian D1 event, though, if they're not competing, they don't have to wear the knitted unitard. They can wear an incredible amount of tweed.
Oh yeah.
And it's a very damp field because it's October.
Yeah.
And during the day, everyone gets more and more hunched because their clothes are becoming
so heavy,
impossibly heavy. There's actually a prize for anyone who can leave the field walking without collapsing under the weight of their own clothes.
Do you have a weighbridge on the way in and then on the way out?
like strawberry pickers.
Oh, fantastic!
Yes, they do. Yeah, there's points for how much percentage increase has been caused by your tweed getting absolutely waterlogged.
You win a piece of salmon and some jam if you can withstand your clothes for a full wet day. I don't know why. Not together.
One of those things they used to eat in 1898.
Off of the old days.
Fashion for some. We used to call it a jam salmon.
A Dickensian D1 would be amazing. I've got it in my head. I can see it. I can see it working. There would be a couple of trade stands where a person who's diversified from carving intricate walking sticks for elderly people is now doing a big handbrake. Huge.
Yes. Okay.
One of those big Ken Block-esque, grab hydraulic wands. But it would be a whittled wooden number, possibly with a family crest on it that's been carefully nailed on, some enamel badging from other events that you've attended, obviously.
Now, just a little bit of housekeeping. Again, sorry to hark back to Le Mans, but we've had a lot of messages from people pointing out that Earl Bamber, the driver that we brought up last week, is in fact New Zealish. He's not American.
Well, I don't believe it.
New Zealand.
I don't believe
it's true, and I feel silly because I feel like I did know that, and I wasn't paying attention. But anyway, he is definitely from New Zealand because we've had about 1,000 people telling us that.
Well, I'm a fool for that, and I apologise to Earl Bamber because he's got the most American name in the world.
Yeah. But lots of people saying also that they, like us, can't help but hear his name sung to the tune of La Bamba.
And what a tune. I think it was the first... I think that was the first song that I recorded off the radio. I pirated it onto tape to make my own mixtape. Really? It was one of the first songs, yeah. I loved it.
Funnily enough, I don't know what the first song I taped off the radio might have been, but I definitely have a vivid memory of recording Orinoco Flow off the radio.
What, off of Enya?
Off of Enya, yes.
Oh, gosh. What a tune.
I know.
Oh, gosh, it's so good. So good.
Also, now, I haven't got my shit together on this one, as in haven't sort of corralled them together, but we had... If you remember, in our Friday Autosot show 2 weeks ago, we were talking about teachers' cars. And we had a huge reaction to this from people telling us about their teachers' cars. There were some absolutely extraordinary ones.
Should we devote an episode
YouTube
to it?
For some reason? Well, we could do, yeah. I was just going to give you a little flavour just from the YouTube comments, because we still put these shows as audio files up on YouTube, and you can comment and join in chat there. And so a chap who I think from his username is called Kirk Lamplew says, my headmistress had a Daimler V12, which for some reason I wasn't that impressed with. What? Her deputy had a weird spec Sierra 4x4. I think it was a GLS. Yeah, there was a 4x4 GLS.
There was a GLSI.
Maybe, yeah.
I think I dug one out on the Late Break Show. That was a four-wheel drive top spec Sierra, but it wasn't an XR. I have to think. Well, that was a really nice car. That car got so much attention. I didn't know whether it was going to, but it was one of those things, that sort of well-specced family car that's not sporty, but it sort of is. Exec. I think we call it exec.
This feels like an extraordinarily seamless and professional moment to mention the Festival of the Unexceptional, which we are appearing at, doing various shenanigans on stage, including a quiz and a swap shop. Bring along a car part or bit of memorabilia that you would like to switch for something else. And we're doing a live podcast recording all on the stage at the Festival of the Unexceptional on the 27th of July. I think tickets are still available. I should have checked. I've not heard to the contrary. We hope to see you there.
Yeah, tickets are still available. And we will be bringing the Eagle Quest. Okay.
Yes, we will.
Now, it is actually exceptional, but I think they're going to give an exception to let us bring the Quest in.
Yeah.
We will have probably polished it by then. I hope so. And I'm looking forward. I've got a couple of things to bring to the swap shop, and we're going to be doing, like I say, a little game show. I'm really looking forward to this show because I think it's one of those car show ideas I wish I'd had.
It's funny as well, when we were at Le Mans and we're surrounded by extraordinary feats of endurance racing and very glamorous and sexy cars, and we drove down in some nice cars, but everyone we talked to about the Festival of the Unexceptional, their eyes lit up. Like everyone we know who's kind of a bit odd like us, certainly just, go, oh, when is it? Well, I want to come. It's a brilliant, a very brilliantly simple concept, isn't it? So
I think
looking forward to that.
It's becoming like the 24 Hours of Lemons, which was almost the counter to the Pebble Beach concours. But yet now people who are sort of well-heeled and follow the Pebble Beach set also want to be part of the 24 Hour of Lemons. And I think we've spoken to a few people who've got some pretty exotic cars who also are really down with coming to Festival of the Unexceptional and actively trying to seek something crud.
So there we go, 27th of July. I hope to see you there. Back to teachers' cars, though, because there's some absolute doozies here. Someone on the YouTube comments called Fish Tigua. It says Mrs. Huxton. I know, I can't figure that out. Fish Tigua. It almost sounds like some kind of Volkswagen spin-off, only sold in China. But he says, or she says, Mrs. Huxton, French and English teacher, had a brown Porsche 928.
Right, I'm going to say Mrs. Huxton was I'm imagining she was a clean example of the mark.
Well, you'll be delighted to hear what else Fish Tigua has to say about Mrs. Huxton.
Gosh.
She also dressed in designer clothes and a long brown leather overcoat and boots.
Oh, gosh.
Very sexy, he says.
Yeah, in a 928.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's
brown as well. A brown 928.
That is an irresistible combination. That's so much brown. I bet she looked like one of the ladies off of ABBA.
Oh, do you imagine? But it's a French
I am
and English
imagining.
teacher, so I imagine she spent a lot of time in France. So I'm seeing more of a sort of Francois Hardy sort of look-alike. Anyway, this is going to make you explode with joy.
Oh, gosh.
From a YouTube user called 23GPS, who says, the arty types who taught languages seem to favour French stuff, Renault 4, AMI, 2CV. But the coolest choice was a teaching couple who had a Matra Rancho and a Bagheera.
Oh, my gosh, double Matra.
What have you got this afternoon? Just double Matra.
I wonder how many times they went, this one's failed its MOT or is just clattering really badly, so I'll use the other one. A week later, this one's clattering badly and I think it's going wrong.
You know what the answer is here? Let's buy another Matra.
Yes.
That'll be working for a while, I'm sure.
Triple Matra.
A chap called Colin Carfan says, in 1976, I was 14 and Mr. Little started at our school. He had a brand new, bright yellow Ford Escort RS2000.
Oh, the best colour. The best colour. Brand new as well.
He then married the very beautiful Miss Riddle. So there was more jealousy.
Oh, gosh.
But the spell was broken when they changed cars and got a Renault 12 Estate.
That's quite an ugly mess of a car, isn't it? The 12
Yes.
That's
someone here called Chris Pig who says, one of my teachers had a Lancia Beta Monte Carlo.
Bloody hell.
I know. It's just you can't imagine teachers having cars of that. But I mean, what's the equivalent of a Monte Carlo? Because it depends what year that was. There's a point at which maybe they'd had a bit of a bad rep, and Lancia's generally not sort of seen as a durable buy. So if it's a few years old, maybe they were dead cheap.
Maybe they were dead cheap. Or maybe they just, like, let's say, wanted to just be a little bit different. I don't know whether... See, having done the school run about an hour ago, before we record this, I do kind of look around and I think, are any of the cars that teachers drive, or even, I guess, mums and dads, parents, are they having much of an influence on young people now in the same way? Because it's hard to put your head in another person and go, right, if I was my son now, so my son's nearly 13, if I was my son now, would I be admiring certain things? There's a couple of parents who've got some trick cars which come out usually on a nice day, or when there's when it's a collection that's a bit more relaxed and less intense. And I said this morning, I woke up and I've got a Ford Ranger pickup Platinum Edition, which is full jingle. Yeah, it's full jingle.
Why do you have such a thing?
Because I had to tow a Brian James race transporter yesterday for a video off of the Late Break Show with an older guy called Tiff Nadell. Anyway.
Oh, yes.
And it was a sweet, sweet shoot, but we'll come on to that.
Yeah, I was going to talk later in this podcast about that Porsche Boxster GTS 4 litre that you drove to Le Mans and I drove back in. But we'll come to that. But the thing is, it was the one thing about that car. It was bright green, so it's quite attention grabbing.
Yeah.
I was going to take my boy to an after-school club in it this week before it went back. And then I had this little thought. I was like, is that cool? Or is it actually a bit much these days? Are kids not wowed by that kind of thing? Are they more like going to go, ugh?
Well, I think some are. And this is what I was coming to. So this morning I said to Wesson, I said, right, off to school, what do you want to go in? We can go in the Ford pickup. Or if you want, it's a beautiful morning, we could take the Beetle, because the Beetle's sat outside. And he went, oh, we got to take the Beetle. So we went off to school in the little Zeppelin, and the number of kids who think it's cool was really impressive, because obviously it's slow and it makes a spluttering noise like a wet gaff. But it's different because you don't see them anymore. They've all kind of gone. Yeah. And it's a good counter to all the kind of typically aspirational cars that a lot of the lads talk about, like the Lambos and the McLarens, and off of all that.
One more teachers' cars thing from Che Harrison, who has listed 3 notable teachers' cars from his school. One, Mr. Fox, he taught English, and his car was a 1979 black and gold Pontiac Trans Am T-top.
Get away.
I know, that's good, isn't it? It's sort of...
What did he teach again?
English.
Oh, wow. But did he
today's
teach American
text
English?
we're going to read from is Smokey and the Bandit.
Because that came out, didn't that come out in 79 or 78?
Yeah, I think it might have done, yeah.
I imagine if that would have cost a lot of money.
You'd think, well, yes, again, but I suppose...
Unless it was more than 10 years old.
It doesn't say what year this was. I'm going to guess this was actually... well into the 90s, based on his second memorable teacher's car. He can't actually remember the teacher's name, Madame something or other, but she taught French.
Oh, gosh.
Her car was a late 80s red Renault 5, which looked like it had been left in Windsor Safari Park's rhino enclosure for a month. So I'm guessing full Parisian spec. But if it was a late 80s car that was all knackered, I'm guessing this is well into the 90s, or maybe the 2000s. So the 79 Trans Am would have been a proper classic by then. You know, if it was 1985, the Trans Am would have just been a sort of used American car.
Yeah.
Slightly odd choice. But and finally, Mr. Nash, who taught business studies.
Buznus.
His car was a white Bedford Rascal, sign written with adverts for his suntanning parlour.
What?
Yeah. Well, Buznus. He's got a side hustle. He knows about
so tanning, and he probably needed the van to move those gigantic fluorescent tube boxes. Oh
yeah,
you know the ones.
Yeah,
I had to move one of those doing a barn find a few months back at the beginning of this year.
Did you?
Yeah, but it was like an old school one. It was massive and really heavy, and it was in a pile of scrap.
I've just noticed something else, another stitch back to a previous show when we were talking about the best way to polish up Mercedes W123 window surrounds.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you thought they're probably stainless steel. A chap called Jeffrey Smith says that he thinks W123 window surrounds are actually anodised aluminium. Very difficult to bring back to a shine once they go all white and chalky. Would probably require taping off the painted portion and machine polishing with a metal polish paste and a very small polishing wheel.
Yeah, that's true. Do you know what? There's a lot of anodised aluminium on my Chevrolet Impala, and I'm pretty sure what we ended up using was jeweler's polishing paste. Oh. I'll find out exactly what it was. It's not that expensive. But on small stuff, it works brilliantly well. It's kind of like smoker's toothpaste, I think. So
just don't machine polish your teeth. And I suppose if you have an electric toothbrush, that's exactly what you do every night, isn't it?
Yeah,
and morning.
Yeah, you could use an electric toothbrush for doing small details.
I might say that to my wife tonight. I go, anyway, I'm a bit knackered, so I'm just going to go and machine polish my teeth and get into bed. See if she notices.
I think that's a great way of going to detail the tombstone.
Detail my teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Detailing surely would be flossing as well, and then brushing.
Flossing,
which apparently is the way round you're supposed to do it, according to a dentist.
Oh, is it?
I spoke to recently. Yeah.
See,
do you do that thing where you go to the dentist and they go, how often do you brush your teeth? And you go twice a day. And you go, okay, that's good, yeah. And do you floss? And I always go, yeah. And knowing full well that I remember like twice a year tops.
I do.
I said, it's just the same old story. In the morning, I'm usually in a rush, and in the evening, I'm usually tired. And either way, I'll brush my teeth, and then I just want to get into bed. And she went, well, it's good to floss before you brush your teeth, so try that.
I feel like, even though I don't know your dentist, I'm going to try it now out of guilt.
Actually, that wasn't the dentist, that was the hygienist.
Oh, hygienist.
My new dentist, since I moved here, my new dentist is the most laissez-faire man. Like, he's not into the bollockings, which is unusual for a dentist, because I feel like most people go into dentistry just for the bollockings, because nobody looks after their teeth properly.
But does he do casual tooth shaming?
No. He's much more. How long have I lived here now? 2 years, and also I think he's also sick of seeing me, because I'd got into going like every 6 months, because being married to an American, Americans are slightly obsessed with tooth health, aren't they? And I have absolutely terrible, gammy, disgusting teeth, but she still said you should go every 6 months. And the dentist here has basically gone, you don't need to come back in 6 months. And I was like, oh, right, okay, I'd come back in 8 months. But every time I see him, he goes, yeah, everything's fine.
You're not booking in for some paint correction and some, like I say, deep detailing, getting the swirl marks out.
Extremely horrible thing where they do on the behind your front bottom teeth, where they take all the tartar out, and then it feels like they've taken the foundations out of your teeth and they're all going to fall off. Yeah. Anyway, you're listening to Britain's #1 dentistry podcast. I wanted to talk about that Boxster from Le Mans just briefly, because you drove it down there, I drove it back. And,
indeed.
But when you drove it down there, and I went down in the 911T, you didn't tell me when we got there how fucking fantastic that Boxster was.
It's probably the kind of the best Porsche the normal person would need. If you look at it as a package, I mean, I know I've got one, and I'm doing that annoying thing where people go, hey, did you know that like the car I've just bought is really amazing? But and mine's obviously nowhere near what this is, the 4-litre GTS. But the thing about that car, if you just look at it as a package, you go, it's got two massive boots, and I mean they're massive for a sports car. The cabin is roomy. The ride, considering the
ride is great.
The ride's better than that Carrera T 911.
The ride's better than my 24 Tesla.
Yes, it is. I can say that. Yes.
Yeah,
and
it is.
I've driven that particular car, as I said, I've actually driven that car in biblical rain, in snow, and I've driven it in mild warmth. Unfortunately, on none of those occasions could I put the roof down, because I just have a habit of borrowing that car from Porsche when it's just not convertible weather. But
I left Le Mans with the roof up, and then it was a nice day, wasn't it? The sun was coming out, and I suddenly thought, what am I doing? Put the roof down, and then that was it. I had the roof down all the way home. I put it up at the Eurotunnel queue because I thought I'd be told off for going onto the Eurotunnel with the roof down. But then I looked around, there are other people in cabrios who were doing it. So once we pulled into Folkestone, before we got off the train, I was like, roof back. And then all the way back to Bath, roof down on a lovely sunny evening. It was fantastic. But that car, goodness me. And after driving the 911 as well, it feels so small and narrow in a great way.
Exactly. I think visibility over certainly the front end, when you're trying to position the car on the road, is definitely easier. I found it much, much easier.
Also, did you ever do that thing where you have a nice car as a press car, and then you get so attached to it, you're like, well, I wonder, I'll go on the configurator and see how I would spec mine if I had 70 odd grand lying around.
Oh shit, yeah.
And I alighted on a black one with those very light gold wheels that Porsche will do for you.
That's a good spec.
JPS spec. It was good spec. Also, take the stickers off the doors. I'm not a big fan of those. And the badge off the boot lid. Go sort of stealth in terms of writing on the outside of the car, but just the gold wheels, just a
instead of JPS, could you put S and S? We could do our own edition.
Oh.
I mean, it would be a bit self-congratulatory, but
yeah, it would be a little bit. But yeah, no, absolutely fabulous car. I was blown away by how I think you're right. It's just like everything you'd sort of want from a Porsche, and I actually think it's sort of. I'd love to try the manual version, but I thought it suited the Peter Kay gearbox as well. Yeah, it's a car you drive with quite sort of small movements of the wrist because the steering's good, the wheel is a nice size, and it's narrow. It's not too fat on the rim.
And it's still a very buttony car, the Boxster.
Yes, it is buttony.
It's still
isn't it?
buttony in a good way.
Yeah.
It hasn't gone
in a good way.
Yeah, the touchscreen infection hasn't got too strong.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought I could be really happy with one of these, I think. But they are new. They're, well, I actually, it's got almost everything you want. I spec'd it on the configurator and I didn't really want to add much. So I think, I was just sort of touching 80 grand with some paint and wheels and things. But yeah, there's still quite a lot of money, isn't it? But then 911s are all 100 grand plus cars now, aren't they?
Which is just such a shame.
Well,
such a shame.
That's what cars cost, isn't it? It's like Range Rovers are all over 100 grand now. Expensive cars are expensive, and
is that a fact, Richard? Is that
yeah?
Okay, are we suddenly turning into Martin Lewis money saving expert?
I don't think Martin Lewis money saving expert's ever gone now. If you've got 100 grand lying around, my advice: don't put it in an ISA or anything like that. Go and buy a Range Rover.
Yeah.
Or a Porsche 911. Although your money would be safer, I think, in the Porsche.
Yeah.
Because I looked at some used Boxster GTS 4 litres and they don't depreciate very much, as it turns out.
No, they don't.
Surprise.
And I borrowed a GT4 on track yesterday where I was tailgating Mr. Liddell. And we had a camera on the nose of it for capturing some track work. And I've driven a few GT4s. Again, it's just such a sublime car. And when I did a review of one a few years ago, I had a couple of people contact me and say, damn you, because of your review, I've bought one. And several people I know have bought them. And they've just gone, this is everything I would need from a Porsche as a person who doesn't do lots of track days, isn't like 101% helmsman, and just enjoys the art of driving and the feedback and the distance on a road trip. It doesn't get much better than this, and I do totally agree.
Is the GT4 not quite loud?
The GT4's... It's not really, really loud. Of course, you've got the button for loudness if you want it. But no, I don't think it's too loud. But of course,
I was in a tunnel on the way back from Le Mans, and there was a Ferrari up ahead, an F12, and he gave it some through the tunnel. And I thought, all right, let's do a bit of that. I got the roof down. So I pressed the loudness button on the exhaust, clicked it down some gears on the paddles, but I was drowned out by this bloody Ferrari's bah! And so I was like, you've got to. I seem to have brought a knife to a gunfight here.
That's one thing that Ferraris do excel at. I forgot to say that on the way back, we pulled over for one of those French lay-by picnic areas because we were both bursting for a wee, and jumped out of the car and ran into the sort of public toilet area. My friend who came with us, Matt, he went in first. I actually heard him go, "Ah!" And as I walked in, he called back at me. He went, "Don't come in. It's like an old trawler in here." And,
God!
Yeah, so I actually went for a little walk just into the sort of fields and just had a better piss fister because I could smell
bad?
it. Oh, it was unbelievable.
Oh gosh.
It was unbelievable, like a thermos flask bubbling on a Bunsen burner full of urine. It was absolutely despicable.
I always assume the loos in those pull-in areas that aren't proper services are going to be grim, and I didn't stop. I went to actual services because I wanted a coffee as well. But it's good to know my suspicions are correct.
Yes, although we had a harrowing experience of the smell. As we got back in the car, this Lamborghini pulled in at speed. Yeah. Okay, and it was a bright green Aventador, I think. Yeah. And the old butterfly type door goes up. It's a British car. The number plate is something V12 Kev. Okay, 4D plate. And a bloke wearing all green to match the green car just falls out.
Falls out?
Yeah. He was a rotund man, and the problem was he was so close to us. I think he heard us giggling because he did I think he was obviously bursting for the loo. He came in hot. It was a proper piss stop because he parked right outside the trawler-smelling kiosk.
Oh no! And then so did he face plant? Like, was it a false? Was it make a slapping noise as he hit the ground?
No, he went down. He put his hands to the ground. So it was a very slow fall. One of those ones where you could have saved
controlled,
yourself.
a controlled fall.
Yeah, but it was one of the, he'd probably been on the road for quite some time, so his legs had got a bit seized.
Oh yeah, particularly in a supercar. Yes,
supercar seized leg. But it was the problem was we had to just stifle our giggling because it was hilarious.
Why don't they sell a Lamborghini branded foam roller for people to work out the knots of long distance supercar driving? So then did he run into the depths of horror?
He did. He did.
Oh no!
Yeah, he did.
This day's just getting incrementally worse by a second.
V12 Kev, as we referred to him all the way home, we were just trying to work out.
Did he leave the door up as he ran off? Like, was it that much of an emergency?
Joe, I think he did leave the door up. Well, I thought he was going to leave the car running, but there were a few Le Mans Brits in this lay-by, but it was the smell was unholy.
Lads.
We've nearly come to the end of the podcast. We haven't mentioned the new Bugatti Tourbillon.
The Bouillabaisse, yes. I was going to bring this up with you, but I was assuming you didn't really give a toss about it. No, I wasn't sure.
Do you know why I give a toss about it? Because Mate Rimac's involved.
Oh yes,
and because Mate Rimac's involved,
mate Mate,
he's just a visionary and just a lovely guy, and I like knowing what's going on in his head. I'm so impressed. I've almost got an engineering man crush on him. The numbers of this Tourbillon Bugatti, I'm sure most people have heard about it, but obviously the name, French for whirlwind, but also mechanical watch movements, and you'll notice the dash and you'll see immediately why. But so it's 250 to be made, starting in 2026, 3.8 million euros, already sold out naturally. Cosworth designed 8.3 V16 NA. That revs to 9,000, 1,000 PS, which I think is 980 something horsepower.
Yeah.
8-speed DCT, which stands for
David Coulthard's trousers. all very tight-fitting gearbox, white as well. The casing is white.
They're extremely fitted. There's no room for movement. Yeah. There's no slop in the system there, is there? So DCT
double clutch transmission would be the other.
No, it's definitely David Coulthard's trousers. That's better than what I was going to say. And it's got 3 electric motors, all 250 kilowatts. I think 335. 2 on the front, 1 sandwiched at the back, and then a little oil-cooled battery pack. I mean, honestly, the numbers for this thing: 1,800 PS, lighter than the Chiron. Probably looks better than the Chiron.
It's lighter than the Chiron.
It's lighter than the Chiron, and yet it's got a bloody battery pack in there and electric motors.
That's nuts.
Yeah, I know. 276 miles an hour, 2 seconds to 62. But we haven't got time to delve into all the details, really. But it basically slips its clutch on launch control.
Does it? Ooh,
yeah.
I don't like the sound of that. But I was looking at it, and I was like, initially I was a bit like, oh, it just looks a bit like a Chiron. But actually, you look closer, and some of the detailing is really nice. I like the sort of sculpture of the way the doors flow into that Bugatti signature kind of C shape on the side, and the interior is exquisite.
The interior is almost
detailing and stuff, but it's got a fixed hub steering wheel like an old Citroen C4.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's still one of the coolest steering wheels of all time on a mass production car.
The Bugatti centre is much smaller, because the thing about the Citroen I always thought was I felt like I might be about to trap my fingers in some way or other, because the central boss was really big. There wasn't a lot of clearance around it, but this is much more, there's much more space.
I love it. I'm really interested to see it in the metal.
It's an interesting thing. I noticed when was it? Well, last night, wasn't it? It was announced, and the internet seemed to be ablaze with chat about it. Even people who were a bit sceptical. It certainly got everyone talking. So, yeah, interesting. I do like the interior. I think it's
a cool car. I'm bringing it back to rucksacks with 2 arms, 2 shoulders.
You get a free rucksack with every one.
I've got a Rimac rucksack that I got given
yes, you have.
when I drove the Nevera, and I know we're lucky in that with this job we do get some free bits thrown at us here and there. But the Rimac rucksack is a really good rucksack. And when you've got a good pen or a good rucksack, it's just a good tool for our job. And I dig that. I've almost worn it out. So just a simple open letter to Rimac, just so you know, I've done a huge amount of global miles in my Rimac rucksack. I'm probably looking to chop it in for another rucksack.
Are we tarting for rucksacks now? Is that where we've got to?
I'm being a whore. I'm basically being a whore.
On that dignified note, I think it's time to bring it into land. But before we go, 3 things to tell you. 1, Johnny has a solo YouTube channel. It's called The Latex Brogues Show, in which he attempts to sell people on smart shoes made from medical gloves. If that's not to your taste, there's always The Late Break Show. Some excellent videos about cars and people who love them on there. What have we got coming up?
That's so stupid, Richard.
I know it is. We're at that point.
Actually, this new episode that will be out by the time you've listened to this is a car cave, a private car collection of a lady called Jane in Worcestershire. Wow. This is one of the most impressive collections I've ever been to. In fact, it might be the most, because it's so extreme and eclectic. She is she's recently sold her Miura. But
yes, you did tell me.
She's got a Toyota 2000 GT that she's owned for many years. So that's the most expensive Japanese car you can buy. She's got a Jag XJ220, which she has owned for a long time. She's put a lot of miles on it. She has about 40 cars, big into Japanese stuff, big into British stuff, like no prejudice against different marks, and really fascinating woman to chat to. I'd urge you to watch that. And I guess if you want to delve into the past, and I'm just whoring myself quickly, the idle chat that I did with Mate Rimac, I would have a watch of that, because he was an interesting guy and had so much time for me, even though his work schedule is absolutely crackers. He really wanted to do the idle chat with me and insisted on finding some shit chairs to sit in, which he did. and that's a man who's interested in the details.
Yes. Exactly.
And all
right,
that.
the second thing I've got to tell you is that I have various books out. One of them is called How to Be a Motoring Journalist by Roy Lanchester, the fictional motoring journalist. Sort of an autobiography and just tales from Roy's life, mostly about making a disgrace of himself on car launches. And the third thing I've got to tell you is, Unchained Melody, the song.
Of course.
There's a couple of facts for you about that. First of all, over 670 artists have recorded that song.
What?
Yeah, it's been covered so many times. But do you know, and I only discovered this recently, why it's called Unchained Melody? It doesn't say that in the lyrics.
No, it doesn't, does it? Why would it say Unchained Melody?
It's one of those things we just sort of accept.
It's not,
that song's called Unchained Melody.
It's not constricted.
Goes, why?
It's not constricted by anything.
It's actually because it was written as the theme song for a movie called Unchained in 1955. And it was originally an instrumental, so it was called Unchained Melody. It was a melody for the movie Unchained. And then the writers were asked to make it into a song with lyrics, and they flat refused to include the word Unchained in those lyrics, which is why it doesn't say it in the song, but they kept the title because it was from the film.
It's a hell of a song. You've reminded me, lately I've been waking up and listening to Lovely Day by Bill Withers. And my new favourite thing...
Do you try and hold the note along with Bill?
I try and hold the note, Rich, but what I do instead is I say the word hair instead.
Ah, right, yes.
So, hair.
Which is a longer holding of a note? That one in Lovely Day, or Roy Orbison in I Drove All Night?
Oh, that's a great one. And we've talked about Roy Orbison.
Should we time them? I might time them, and we'll time it, and we'll see next week which is the winner, who's got the longer note. Well, that's all for next time. But for this time, thank you for listening. We'll be back on Friday answering more of your questions in another episode of Ottersott. But for now, thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, mate. Bye.
So you've enjoyed this podcast, but you've had a thought. Is there a way here today that you could show support? Well, you could join our Patreon, what wonders that it brings. Early shows and extra notes on that side of things. You could buy our merchandise, we've mugs and hats but still no ties. One day we will make those pies, but in the meantime, guys, hey guys, like and subscribe, and maybe leave a nice review. Like and subscribe, we know you know just what to do. Like and subscribe, we don't want to take the piss. Like and subscribe, but we were told to ask for this. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
I drove on the hair.
The thing about that Roy Orbison song is I always think to myself, if I'd literally just driven all night to get to you,
Yeah.
and then I say, is that all right? And that's on the doorstep. Is that okay? And you go, no, I wasn't that bothered about seeing you. Go, for fuck's sake, I've just driven for 10 hours and broken. And you don't give a shit.
Also, I made curry this evening. The house smells like a French rest stop, Lou. So don't come in. Sleep in the car, mate.